Hello, welcome to another tutorial. I'm Samolaito Roberto Brimpo, and in this lesson, we are going to look at one of the most important ideas in web design, layout models. In Primel, there are three main layout patterns you need to understand: normal block flow, flex, and 12-column grid. If you choose the right one, layout becomes much easier. If you choose the wrong one, everything starts to feel harder than it should. Let's start first with the normal block flow. So as we have already learned, I'm just going to add my section because we are building a section of our website. And then I'm going to add a block to it. This is the most natural layout mode. Items stack in order, one after the other. This is good when content should just flow down the page in a simple, readable way. For example, a heading, then a paragraph, then a button. That is a perfect case for a normal block flow. You do not need grid for everything. You do not need flex for everything. Sometimes the simplest layout is the correct one. Now let's look at flex. So let me demonstrate the layout with the normal block flow. And this is the normal block flow when you start. So if I want to put 2 blocks on the width, I can just resize this by clicking the resize here and making sure that it's in layout mode. Then I can add another block. As you can see, the block automatically adds beside this one, allowing you to put your layout in any way you want. So I'm just going to resize this again, and I'm going to add a third block. So let's add another block and see what happens. As you can see, the block is added to the third line. Now, let's say you've done this and you want to add another block. What happens? Let's add a fourth block and see what happens. So now it goes down. So we've talked about this earlier. As we said, you can use this if the content needs to flow down from left to right down. So now we have a simple layout here. We have 2 blocks here, as we have said already, that you can organize your content into various blocks to make it look interesting, to make it easy to have structure for your page. Now that you have this layout, you can begin to put in other items like images, text, buttons to create the layout that you're looking for. That is one way to go. Now let's look at flex. Flex is useful when you want to line things up in one direction. Usually that means a row or a column. For example, 2 blocks side by side, a row of buttons, an icon next to text, or a group of items you want evenly spaced. Okay, so now I'm going to have an item here and I'm going to put in icons. So let me put in some icons, and I'm going to put in a button as well. So I'm just going to put in a button as well. Now I'm going to change this from block to flex row, as we discussed, flex. Now, when I do that, when I select the block again, I have a few options here. Now, I can control the direction, alignment, justification, or wrapping, and even the gap between the items in. As we said, you're using flex. If you want things to line up in one direction, usually that means in a row or column. So, for this example that we have a button and a block, we can choose to center items. So we can choose to center items like this, or we can choose to put items to the right, or we can choose to expand or stretch items, that's let them fit the full width. Grid is for layout that need more control. The 12-column grid system gives you a consistent way to divide horizontal space. For example, a layout where one side takes 7 columns and the other takes 5 columns, or 3 cards that need to align neatly, or a feature section where content spans differ in width. So I'll switch this section to a 12 grid. Now in the columns, the blocks can be in different span or width. So now let's take this and then we click this item here, turn on grid. Once we turn on the grid, it's a 12 column. So you can see what's happening. They are each in 1 column space. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take this here and stretch them. As you can see, it's stretching. I have this set. I can stretch them alongside each other and decide that I'm going to even push this down here. Let's say like this. And then I'm going to create something like this. Now, for now, I'm just going to leave this like the way it is. So to demonstrate this cleanly, we start afresh and then we create a new section. Then we look at what we want to create in this section. Let's say, for instance, we want to create 3 columns of text with different content. Let's say, for example, a heading with 3 columns below it talking about the services of a company. So in this case, it's very simple. We'll probably have to start in grid. This is a simple thing for a grid layout. We would add a block to it. And then we all know that it's a 12 grid layout. So we need to pull it to the length that we want. Now we want it to be a full width. Inside here, we are going to add our text for the heading that we just talked about. And then we are bringing everything we have done so far in the previous videos to build a simple interface. Then we are going to make it an H1. Now, mind you, H1s in your website each page should have exactly one H1. You can have multiple H2, H3s, but each page should have exactly one H1, and it should be about the main idea about the page. It should be for the main idea about the page. Now let's take this, and I'm going to go into the text settings here, and we are going to auto clear this. Then we are going to make it 100% for now, and we are going to put it in the middle, and we would go to the text. So let's put a title in here, and let's make this an H3 or H2 instead, and we will go into content and put something there. Let's say our services. Great. Now that we are done, we are going into another block because we want 3 options. So I'm going to add another block to this, and you can see it starts off as 1, and then we are going to add this. We want the block to be 3, so we are making it 4, then it will work through. In this block, we are going to add a simple image, and then we are going to add a text. This text is going to be H3 or H4 as a heading, and then we are going to add another text to it, and we are going to make it a body text. Right, so we'll go next here. Now you can see, as we discussed, there are 3 things there are 3 kind of layouts. Now to make this simple for us, we talked about flex, which allows you to arrange things horizontally or vertically stacked by each other. So we are going to activate this to flex row, and you can see it stacks like this. It makes it very simple and easy to deal with, and we don't need to do anything again. Now we select this, and then we are going to make it a paragraph, right? And then we go ahead with our content. So let's say right, then we have some content here that we can write. So we have some text over there. Now, there are a few things we need to change first. The width of this is not totally 100%, and this is something that auto comes with the system, but we are going to make it 100% in there. Then we are going to do the same thing for that one, and we have our look here. Now, we talked about a few things like gap between items, and that is what this is for. So now we are going to reduce the gap so that items get closer to each other. It's not only gap that is making the gap here big, it's probably going to also be margin, and we are going to talk about that in detail in the next video. But for this look, I'm just going to clear this here, check this and see if that is the issue here. So when I select this, I need to go into margin so that I can reduce the margin there, right? So that we get it right. Now we can use the gap to increase or decrease what we have there. Now our gap is 1. Let's leave it that way. And let's see if our margin has issues at the top as well. So let's reduce the margin a bit. Let's reduce the margin. We can even set the margin to 0 and let the vertical arrangement be done by the gap that we set. But I would like to control the look myself. So now this is something very simple that we have created using a grid and a flex together. So with this, most of the things you are going to do, you would need these things, except at a point in time you want to add other things into the layout, which we will go over. You can create things easily like this. Now that we have this, I'm just going to give you a bonus tool right at the top here, which is duplication. Now that we've done this, there's no need for us to do it all over again. All we need to do here is duplicate this, and then we have another block. Then we can duplicate it, and then we have the next block here. So in a couple of minutes, we have a simple layout. Now let's make sure the color is not as ugly as it is. Let's do a little bit of cleanup. Let's make this a white background, right? And this we can reduce as we've talked about the height here and place it here. We can decide to also remove the background here. And decide to remove the background here and continue removing the background. Great. So we have a simple look, and this can be icons, this can be pictures. So for now, I'm just going to click this. Let's and select some pictures that we have for our design, and then we can see if we can come up with a beautiful design in the end. Now, so for the sake of the look, we are just going to stick to these 3 pictures. So as we discussed earlier, a common beginner mistake is forcing everything into a grid. Another mistake is trying to build a structured multi-column layout using only random width in normal flow. Now Primel gives you all these 3 models, so the job is not to memorize them. The job is to choose the simplest model that solves the problem. Just like we selected a flex for these blocks that allowed the items to flow easily, we could as well make them into a block and then position these items ourselves, but that is a lot of work. If Flex can do it, let's leave it to Flex. In the next lesson, we'll talk about spacing and sizing, because even a correct layout model can still look bad if spacing is inconsistent.